Hello, marketeers. Welcome to another episode of AEC Marketeer Podcast, exploring AEC marketing and beyond. I'm your host, Keelan Cox, and I'll be exploring marketing trends and answering your most pressing questions to help you thrive as an AEC marketeer.
All right, marketeers, thank you so much for joining me today. I have on Deirdre Booth. We're going to do a co-episode, so this is going to be an AEC Marketeer episode and a PSM show episode. So I think I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, me too. I'm Deirdre Booth, President and Lead Strategist at Tankro Marketing, and I'm also the co-host of the PSM show, which is the Professional Services Marketing Show, which is a podcast for the same audience as Keelan.
Yeah.
So we're super excited for this crossover today.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Taylor Swift and the marketing genius that she is. You do not have to like her music to appreciate this episode. We're actually probably not even going to talk about her music. What we are going to talk about is how she has become such a force and what we can learn from the marketing strategies that she essentially has spent about a decade and a half creating herself.
Yes.
This is like grassroots stuff that's just taken off and essentially taken the world by storm.
When I say I was not expecting to see the life of a weatherman on the Weather Channel last week, I think that's when I stopped and went, this human's influence over media and marketing, it can't be ignored, right?
No.
Whether you like the music or not, the influence is there.
Yeah, everyone
That's
knows.
certainly not their target market on the Weather Channel, right?
Right. So we've both got lots of notes. I think, let me just see, because I think the right place to start would just be to introduce like the Swift economy, like Swiftonomics,
Yes.
all of that. You know a bit more. I've got some stats. But we're coming at this from two different perspectives. So I grew up with Taylor Swift. She's 2 years older than me. So by the time she was releasing her music, I was sort of in the shoes that she had been in when she was writing it. So it was the first time that music actually felt relevant to me. And my best friend and I spent hours on Taylor Swift, whereas you've entered because
The marketing was actually the first thing that got me. It was like whether I'd listened to her music or not, I knew who she was. I knew the drama, and like I don't think I really paid attention to her till the Kanye moment, right? Which
Okay.
again to me was
Right.
such an interesting moment where she took and turned it into a marketing moment for herself, right? Something that could have been so because I remember watching it live and being like, well, this is weird.
Right.
What is happening between these? Like, I had no idea what was happening between any of these people. So it gets on my radar. And to me, it would like, I think because I'm a generation older, to me, I started noticing how much she was like Madonna and her ability to market, control the narrative, like her business mind, whether I liked her music or not, I was appreciating the business behind it. And then I got hooked on the music.
right.
So not gonna.
We have parents by Tilly. We are at my house, so you will see cats and you will see children, most likely. Okay. That said, moving on.
That said, and again, my daughter was that generation, so I saw
Right.
that music as kid music, but I could see the business going on,
Right.
and that fascinates me as a marketer.
Yeah.
And so that's really where I engage now, watching what's happening and being like, this is like nothing I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Right. So let's talk economics, Swiftonomics, which is actually what economists came to call this phenomenon. This is a coined term in economics now, is Swiftonomics, because she had such big impact on GDP. $2 billion in ticket revenue just from the Eras tour. I think you had some other gnarly stats.
Yeah, and so, well, number one being the highest grossing concert tour, $2 billion in ticket revenue was the same one I had.
Okay.
But what I thought was interesting, because I'm always looking at economic development, what's that ripple effect throughout like a town when something comes.
Sure.
And so they were talking about, for most of the shows, $5 billion in local spending. So beyond what her ticket sales, like that money that people say go to her,
The greater effect.
The greater effect was $5 billion in local spending, hotels, restaurants. Like when people came to these concerts, they're spending money where they're at.
Yes.
Right. And so think about like when, for example, when I lived in Phoenix in economic development, we talked for 2 years about the impact leading up to and after a Super Bowl event. Right.
Right.
Imagine having that happen. How many times in 2 years did she do that?
Oh my God.
Across the world.
No, but it was literally, I'm pretty sure I read a stat. It was like every single city she went to without exception, its GDP grew significantly.
That's insane.
Almost to pre-COVID levels in some cases, and it exceeded pre-COVID levels in other cases. It's just insane. The really impressive stat that I got was her Eras Tour economic impact was greater than 50 countries' GDP. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but there were politicians, I think the Canadian Prime Minister, she didn't have a Canadian date, and he put out a public bid for her to have her
the
concert.
Olympics.
Yes. But like out into the public, referenced her song titles, like did a whole thing. And then other politicians copped on because her magnetism and like she brought in so many tourists that it was such a huge economic boom that every single country wanted this for themselves as well. And so any country that wasn't on that list at least gave it a go, and Canada was successful.
Love it. So let's talk about, well, what does this mean about marketing?
Right.
Like, why are we still talking about our concerts and all that? So how does she do it, right? Because it's her marketing that gets to create these insane events, right? There's something that led up to this. So what do you think her marketing playbook is?
I think she's able to take something and make it fun. She's able to gamify an experience, and she's also able to know what it's like to be in the shoes of her fans, and she creates an experience around what she perceives as their needs. So it's not what necessarily she wants as an artist. She's very like end user focused.
Okay.
So she leaves teasers and things, and this is where we were talking about this a little bit ahead of time. My best friend and I, when we used to get a new album, we started to notice that in the lyrics of the songs, there would be capital letters that were out of place. And I guess I should have known I was going to be a marketer, because I was like, that's not right. And then we figured out that if you circle them and you put them all together, it spells something. And it was typically who the song was about, even though she wouldn't say it in public. So she started off doing that. Like, that is an original thought. So it's kind of like, how do we make this fun? And how do we get people to pay attention to the lyrics? So she's a lyricist. She's a songwriter.
Yeah, right.
She doesn't have the best voice on the market, but she's a killer songwriter. She uses what they call Easter eggs, like the cryptic clues in the speeches that she does, in the appearances that she makes, where you go back afterwards and you're like, oh, that's what that meant.
Right.
And like, there's very little that like she doesn't reveal in advance, which makes you want to dig into it.
Well, to your point, it's that fan, it's like a parasocial relationship she's having with her fans. And so it's really interesting, because I saw a couple clips that, I'm getting ready for this. Because I wanted to talk intelligently about it, not just, Deirdre's thoughts on the things. And so two things I thought were really interesting is she did talk about, like, she didn't really do it intentionally at first, but then when she saw like how kind of cuckoo people were getting with it, she really started to have fun with it.
Right.
And that level of engagement, right? And so as we go back further into this conversation, I want to make sure we tie that to like what we can do in AEC. But I thought the other thing that was interesting, she talked about the friendship bracelets. Because again, someone my age isn't looking to make friendship bracelets, right? Mm-hmm. And she even said, I had no idea. If I'd have known that would have happened, I would have invested in beads. And so what do you think is so organic? Like, people spend so much money on Taylor Swift stuff. Like, as a teenager, how much money do you think you spent on Taylor Swift, right? Like, that's insane.
But it's like grassroots stuff. Okay. And I think the relationship that she's created, it's sort of like when you give someone something, they give it back. Uh-huh. It's like there's a give and a take.
Reciprocal.
Yeah, it's reciprocal. So it's like when when you've been given a gift of a game or something fun, you kind of want to then turn it into something else.
Right.
So when it's like, that's just a lyric in one of her songs about the friendship bracelets. And that's fans just taking it, owning it, and running with it. And it being embraced then by the artist.
Right. And so I think, when I was doing my research, they call that like making your fans co-creators.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to explore this a little bit more as we move into the conversation, because I think there's some other things she does that we can tie on, but that
Big
was
time.
one. But I think for me, one of the things that I have always impressed me in watching how she controls things is that she still is very authentic. Like, she is a big dork. Like, when I watch her in interviews, I'm like, she is not the most
not cool.
graceful poise that, like, she is not no Kate Middleton. Right. She is a big, giant dork of a giraffe, of a human sometimes. And so super authentic, but people's like, do you think that that's part of the attraction that opens her up to so many more people? Because that's what we're talking about here is, right, she has in order to get those numbers, you have to have a big audience base, a big client base, right?
Yeah.
So how does she open that net to get so many people into her co-creation base?
That's a really good question. I think when she was coming up, it was sort of like, she wasn't cool. Like, she wasn't the cool one to like.
Right.
And she never changed that.
Yeah.
And I think it was like, even in the not changing of it, says something and attracts people. Like, even as she got more recognized and well-known and popular, she's still kind of weird. Like, which is so relatable, because none of us are actually like great.
I think there's more of us
of the time.
Are
like we can all put it on for a bit,
right,
but not long term, And I think she just really embraced that, and it's easy for people to relate to that. I also think that she genuinely just seems to like doing what she does. And you can always feel when something is authentic. Like, I think we've had this conversation before.
I think, authenticity goes so far.
She, like I said, she's gamified engagement. So she's made it so that she leaves these things, and there's whole online worlds now that didn't exist before, to just like crack the code basically, and then share it out. So now, like, when I don't know when something means, I'm just like, what does this mean? Because someone else has figured it out.
Yeah.
They're waiting for this. Because
seriously, I think that was one of the things that drew me in, being an English major, is not a lot of people want to sit around and talk about books with you.
Sure.
The way that like her insane fans dissect her stuff. I'm like, I so would have hung out with those people in college.
Yes.
We were not cool. We were dorks who wanted to sit around and talk about literature.
Yeah. But like, pair that with like being very business savvy.
Yeah.
Like, both of her parents are, I think one of her parents is an accountant.
Okay.
Like, they're both business people, and she must have taken something from there, because she understands like demand scarcity.
Right.
She understands that if she puts out a limited anything, it's going to get more attention. Or, if she only shows something for X number of days, like, that will generate more hype and more interest than if you have something for a longer period of time. Like, she gets that. She understands that piece of economics. She is good at refreshing herself. Like, she's good at sort of
brand refreshing.
That's exactly what it is every single time. And she calls them eras. You can call it whatever you want. It's a rebrand. Yeah. And she had a really interesting phrase, or a quote from one of her documentaries that I wrote down, because there's such a direct tie between it and the AEC market. So I'm going to read it. You can tell me your first thoughts, and then I'll tell you what I thought of. So, be new to us, be young to us, but only in a new way, and only in the way that we want. And reinvent yourself, but only in a way that we find to be equally comforting, but also a challenge for you. Live out a narrative that we find to be interesting enough to entertain us, but not so crazy that it makes us uncomfortable. Where does your brain go to when you apply that to AEC?
Oh, It's literally like we want to be everything to everybody, and we don't really want to stick out too hard because, we have to be professional. And yeah, that's pretty much every rebrand is we want to be super fun and super cool and super fresh, but we only want to use blue and gray. And we, like that's literally branding in AEC over and over is like putting us in this box. Right? Don't be too brave. Don't be too loud. Don't be too anything.
Right. And I think the AEC is such a wide market that I'm going to open this up to include like our clients.
Yeah.
And I think I've talked about this before. I'll say it again, but like in my head, like the Taylor Swifts of our industry are actually the government marketing, NPS, National Park Service. They are hilarious.
Oh yeah.
That like all of their social media is chef's kiss. It's
seriously
genius.
If you haven't Googled it, go look at the Redwood Park Service TikTok right now.
Like they are having a moment.
They're having a moment.
Big time. And like the Utah Department of Transportation.
Yes. Yeah.
I've talked about them before. Like they're on it. And that's sort of like the secret sauce of what was it? It was be interesting enough to entertain us, but not so crazy that it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, and you are going to have firms that like any sort of humor or silliness makes them uncomfortable. And I think you just have to say like, okay, well, move on. Cause it's not it,
Yeah. Right.
So that's where my brain goes.
I think that's really interesting. I love that we always look at things differently too. So, okay. So that being said, like, especially when I think one of the most interesting things between, we talked about the Eras tour, but Life of a Showgirl was a whole different thing of brands jumping on and different artists release and like making instantly. Because nobody knew what was coming until she did that podcast, right? And how quick brands jumped on it. And then the weekend of the release. When I say I did not expect the Weather Channel, or I saw like an ice machine commercial. I saw Tool commercials in orange and mint green. And I'm like, I have never, I've been 25 years as a marketer, I've never seen something like this before. And so what was different here and what can we learn from that?
So number one, I think you go back to the fact that I think to one of your points, she owns her narrative, right? So she literally owns it because her narrative that's her songwriting. She now owns her masters. When she didn't, she re-recorded and she captured a whole new audience. So you have that element of things. And then you have the Eras tour that is clearly like, it ruins concerts forever. Like, kind of, anyone who hasn't learned from her is now in the dust behind.
She set a bar pretty high on that.
She set the bar so high. It was a 3.5 hour concert and it was dynamic. It was like, I can't even remember. They're calling it like the Eras tour amnesia.
That people can't remember it.
Can't remember exactly what happened because there's so much, but it was just like, you're like living in a circus, right? So she's building off of that momentum. And then she drops a double album in the middle of that. And then afterwards is like, she's the queen of building on momentum. Now she has this larger audience that's talking about her. Again, you don't have to listen to her music to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then she's got this great color scheme, glitter. Like I've been a diehard glitter fan since I was 9, so like I'm on board. But she has crafted this in such a way that now her Easter eggs can be public and prior to something coming out.
Okay.
So now you have people, she's never done a podcast, and now she's on a podcast. And we know from past experience that her first appearance on something usually has like it's loaded, right? She did a graduation speech and it was like Easter egg after Easter egg after Easter egg, and people they figure this out afterwards, right? Because you weren't expecting it. She was on the Ellen DeGeneres show and talked very casually, but then afterwards you go back and you're like, oh my God, she told us everything. So this time, after you have 3 experiences like that, you're like, oh, this means something. And then enter everyone else. Like once it catches on, it's like wildfire.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time coming is, long answer.
Well, okay, so I have some statistics because
Yes.
when I say this was a phenomenon I'd never seen, I wanted some numbers to prove it.
Okay.
What I got was within 72 hours of the announcement, social listening tools tracked an 800, this is a big one, 847% surge in brand mentions tied to Taylor Swift. Right? Like that's an insane number within 72 hours. And
There was a phrase you had for this.
yeah, and so this is what it said, and it was called brand trend jacking. Trend jacking. So what we saw was M&M's, Duolingo, Canva, Starbucks, the Empire State Building, right? Like all of a sudden, they're creating ads instantly. And so my question is a couple things. I think it's a younger generation doing marketing in some sense. So to your point, you've seen this happen enough times to know it's happened where you would have had to explain that to me like 3 times to be like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
And then some chick's going to go on a podcast and I need to make an ad about her album? Like, how would that relate to my business, right?
And you know what? I've actually taken a page out of Emily's book. Emily is one of Deirdre's employees who's Gen Z. And because of TikTok, how quickly TikTok works. I think that's also a major component here of like, I remember Emily saying that, when she was doing her gaming stuff, if there was a trend, if you were an hour late, you were out.
You were stupid. You just looked lame, right? Cringe, is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Cringe.
Who knows?
So yeah, I think there's so many things have changed that like when I was trying to think what star would I relate to her, and I think, Michael Jackson they didn't have any of these tools back then, right? So there's a reason why she can have so much influence, right? It's just social media and all that. So that all being said, how does this relate to AEC, right? Like, so how do we as AEC firms create people that are so fanatic about what we do that they're co-creators in our marketing?
And I'm going to go back to this. So I'm going to answer your question, but with an example, like the Utah Department of Transportation. I don't live in Utah. I don't drive on their roads. I follow their stuff because it's funny. And like they get messages telling them about things now. And I think it's sort of, you have to create the environment for it to happen. You have to be willing to be a little bit vulnerable, and vulnerable doesn't mean sad. Like it can be like vulnerable enough to be silly or to be funny in an industry that isn't typically either of those things. And then you sort of open yourself up to people being able to co-create with you. AEC marketing memes. Yeah. That's people co-creating with you because you were willing to take the chance to be funny in a space that has historically been so
not funny.
Serious. And like if you were funny, it was seen as unprofessional.
Yeah.
And it sort of flipped the narrative a little bit. So I think that's a piece of it, right? I think the opportunity for AEC firms is to look at this not only from your client's perspective of like, we're talking about Taylor Swift and her fans. So like seeing the fans as not just like your clients, but your fans, the fans of your brand. So who's affected by your brand? Who's affected by your company? That's like the larger public. That's your staff. Like that's staff culture. That you can apply any of these things. Maybe not as far as like music goes, like you're not teasing new music, but like we talked about all of these being a rebrand. Rebrands happen in our industry
all the time.
Projects are one. Maybe we're not allowed to announce those right out the gate, but projects are completed. And like, what if instead of saying like on time, on budget, whatever, like table stakes stuff, we actually talk about something cool about them, and we, allude to certain things and then reveal them later. Or what if you have new leadership and you're excited to announce it and you want to tease it? Like, I get that there's internal politics and you don't want to mess with people's heads too much, but they're all opportunities. You just have to apply the fandom thing to your different audiences. And that's marketing 101.
Well, that, right, and along with it, the storytelling. telling better stories.
Yeah.
Telling more interesting, authentic stories than we were doing this pre-talk. Again, I think everybody cringes a little when they hear we were on time and on budget. I'm
Right. Like,
oh my gosh, you met your contractual obligation.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me the story.
And no one died. Congratulations.
So yeah, how do we tell more interesting stories that people want to follow?
Yeah. A really good example of it that I've seen, and I think I talked about this on the podcast before with Duncan. His firm does core values champions, where they nominate someone who really embodies a core value, and they put it up on their website, and that person is the champion of that value for whatever the award period is. It's like a quarter or semi-annual. And everyone writes in why they've nominated that person. And so that ends up on their website of like, Duncan was something like, I'm going to get this all wrong, so I actually don't even want to say it, but it had something to do with like connecting people and being able to tell stories. And that was alluded to one of their values, right? Mm-hmm. It told a story of Duncan and how he relates to the company.
Right.
And if your values are community, you get to tell a really great story about someone who does something great in the community, or how you do something great in the community. Like, none of these have to be left field. They don't have to be uncomfortable, but they do have to be smart.
Yeah.
Have you seen any examples?
Well, I've seen more examples instead of the storytelling. I'm going to talk more about the fanatics. And so,
okay.
Yeah. So I have had the pleasure of working for a man, and I'm going to call him out because he's still one of my favorite people, Mr. Barry Chase of Chase Building. Yeah. And he is, so when I say a man who understands the client experience and like how to make construction fun from the proposal phase all the way through. And I, when I came to work for him, I come from years and years of engineering. Mm-hmm. And I walked to an office, and this is way back in the early 2000s. Like, we had pets in the office. Like, he kept the office full of food and treats, and like there was always fun things going on. And my first impression was, this is pure chaos. I hate it and I love it, right? I hate it and love it all at the same time. But when I say like the client base and how much they loved working with everybody, like people had fun on their projects, his marketing's fun, everything about his brand is so fun and memorable. And you did have clients that would rave about you like unbidden because they just love working with that kind of culture so much, right? Yeah. And I think, what I learned from that is not everybody has to be a Barry to have a great culture that fits with clients, because conversely, we have another client right now that personality-wise couldn't be more different in some ways, but is still so authentic. And his values are more quiet and military, comes from a military background. Let's put it that way. So, so he's not flamboyant with his values, but the way he treats his clients and interacts with his clients, and everybody at the company interacts with his clients, same thing. When I just did client perception surveys, like when the rave reviews of like, I feel so cared for, right? It wasn't on time and on budget. It was, I feel so cared for. Sure. I really feel listened to. I know they're going to find solutions. They're going to collaborate, right? I can't tell you how many times when I do client perception surveys, how rarely the rave review is they came in on time and budget. Right? It's never, ever. It's the experience of what it was like to work with them. And did that experience fit with that client too? And I think that's the thing, is not everybody's always going to be for everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so sometimes like when I hear people kind of, especially, men denigrating Taylor Swift a little bit, I'll just be like, well, her music's not really for you then. Like, it's okay. You don't have to like it.
And I have a distinct memory of like when Beyonce's album came out and everyone was like, I don't even like this. And I was thinking like, well, yeah, I don't really like it either. And then someone posted the wisest thing that's ever been uploaded to social media is like, if you don't like it, then it's not for you. Right. And I was like, okay. Yeah.
So that being said, is in AEC, how do we be authentic while expanding our audience, but not being everything to everyone, knowing that some people are going to fall out, right? It's kind of that same thing. And so, I don't know, I guess the way I look at it with the brand is your brand just is. You can say what it is all you want, but it's really people's experience that is your brand. And so it is what it is. So just embrace it and be it. Right? And I think that's kind of the best thing I can say with most AEC firms is figure out what that thing is that makes you you and just be that.
Yeah.
Because people are either attracted to it or not. You can't pretend you're something else.
Exactly.
That's inauthentic.
Totally. And I think we do see a trend in AEC going towards this emphasis on CX, the client
That
and
is one of the
customer
number one
experience.
trends, right?
That's what Taylor Swift gets right.
Yes.
She's all about the client experience. It's just like it's two sides of the same coin.
So how do we get our clients to make friendship bracelets? And literally, so AEC, right? Like, how do we get them to want to do that with us? Like,
and I think that's where relationships come in. It's like, how are you nurturing your relationships? Because the friendship bracelets are a product of a reciprocal relationship. So how do you create those? Like you give your clients the credit, like the street cred that they need. Like you advertise their great projects for them. You give them ideas on what they can do to, help their own careers. Excuse me. She's either in agreement or disagreement.
best.
Unclear which one that is.
She just wanted to wait.
Lost my chain of thought. But yeah, help the relationship is what defines everything. And so how do you help your clients be who they want to be, who they see themselves as?
Right.
Period.
Yeah. And I think to your point, CX is such like, again, when that's several episodes of podcasts. And I think we both had Tim Asimos on recently talking about client experience.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard those, go listen to them. But I do think like really understanding your clients and what's going to make them want to make a friendship bracelet with you is key, right? So doing that client mapping, doing the empathy mapping, figuring out an entire CX program. And I think what was interesting was at, so many conferences I've been to lately, in almost every paper in the top 3 trends, they say client experience will be really the only thing that you can differentiate yourself on 100%. In the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think and the funny thing is, as firms, we know that. I'm literally in the middle of interview prep right now. We're against one other firm. And you'd be amazed how much time we spend talking about how to differentiate it. Because when it all comes down to it, we are so equal on so many things.
It's like, who do you like working with?
It's the people and the experience. It is really the only thing that you can differentiate on.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to sit there and talk about it in an interview, blah, blah, blah. But are your clients making friendship bracelets? So.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
I think one of the other points that I believe you had made was she doesn't broadcast anything.
No.
She engages. So like, to your point of friendship bracelets, like how do we stop telling telling the story and invite the audience in, invite your staff in to help build a narrative. She's very good at just bringing something in as opposed to just informing.
That's a really good question.
Maybe it's not one that we answered.
That's a really good question. Because they've got to want to.
Yeah.
Right? Because they've got to want to.
Food for thought. Maybe it's a different
deep thought. Always have such deep thoughts.
It's the Taylor in me. Last note is, I think, and you can give me your take on this, of one thing that Taylor does really well that has defined her career is that she evolves with intention. And I think that's probably the easiest tie into AEC. What are your thoughts?
Ooh, that's interesting. She involves with intention, but what I think's interesting is that I don't think she always, sometimes she was forced into it, which I think's interesting, right? Sometimes it was brand management versus an intentional 3 steps ahead move. It was a response. But I do think that the intention behind the rebrand, she doesn't just, it's never a knee-jerk reaction.
Sure.
I think is what's interesting.
Yeah.
Is that she takes her time and is, to your point, very thoughtful about every single part of it before she launches it. And there's a story behind it. And I think that's what most of our brands miss, is the story. And the story is what people actually care about. Why did you do it? What does it matter? How does it affect me? And all of that. Like, she creates such mystery and interest around it before even, to your point, dropping the Easter eggs. And when I think in marketing, we tend to do it in AEC marketing. Like, there's been many times I've done a rebrand where we've dropped little hints and things like that, but not to the level that we could.
But to your point of, like, in AEC, we don't always get to choose when we rebrand. Like, there's mergers and acquisitions. Like, that's your hand being forced.
Yeah.
And how do you communicate that in a way that's going to resonate with your audience and do it with intention? It's a situation that you're in.
Yeah.
Whether you like it, don't like it, had any part in it.
Yeah.
But, like, it's what you make of that and how you approach it that's going to make the difference.
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing I've learned over the years with branding is it's always, you got to have a good story.
Yeah.
No matter what, you just have to, because that's what people want to know anytime you make a change, or even when you start a company. Why'd you pick that name?
Yeah.
Why'd you pick that color? What does that mean? If you go for a really good, interesting story, even if you've made it up, then people tune you out because they think you weren't intentional. Right.
Yeah.
And even the story of my brand, as you know, is it wasn't intentional. And that's the funniest part of the story, was that it was never meant to be. And I made do with it. And now, like, we have so fully embraced it. But, you know, we're getting ready to come up in 3 weeks on the 14-year anniversary. And so I always laugh. You'll love this. I don't know if you know exactly. The anniversary is 11/1/11.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
Right.
I like that.
But I always laugh because I think, like, it took me a long time to remember the date, because I was, like, so not expecting to even start a company when I was in the line to file the paperwork for my LLC. I was literally just going to work for one person. They were like, just get an LLC and come, you know, while you're figuring out your next steps, right? So I stand in line. I'm still crying from, like, what's, like, all these things that have happened.
Yeah.
I'm standing in line, like, turning this paperwork in. As a joke, I name it after my dog.
I didn't know this.
So I always think about, again, when I go to rebrand and brand, like, you know, that when I really truly went to rebrand the next time, it was like, but I had to make up a story the first time. Of, like, when people ask why I named the company that, because I wasn't going to tell them the real stories. I had to create this whole story around why I named my company after my dog. And, you know, again, now it's years later, and it is a great story, because even that in itself is a story in branding, right?
Yes.
So you can do with what you got in some ways. Yeah. But I think the thing about any brand or rebranding is that it's got to have a good story around it, because that people, you can change, like, even when people come up on their anniversaries, right? We literally were having this discussion with the team this morning of who cares it's our anniversary besides us.
Right.
Yeah. No one, unless you really have fun with it or tell a good story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't have a good story to tell, then put 14 on your logo. It doesn't mean anything to anyone. Who cares?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
So,
Love that. Right. I think we've done our best here.
to cover the Taylor Swift effect without talking too much about her music.
Yeah. I don't think okay.
The AEC case. That's a whole different, like, I mean, that would be like a 3-day dive.
It would.
Here.
It would. My brain's already spinning. Stop me now. Okay.
Where are my opalite earrings?
Girl. I was like, what do I have that's opal? I've got honey,
6. I love that you have all the Easter eggs in the background. I wonder how many people are going to notice, because like before I got here and she turned the camera on, guys, I was like picking up all the Easter eggs she has out here. So I'm really truly hoping some of you get as crazy as we can be and zoom in on some of this stuff here.